So last time the style of animation we have done is called the frame by frame hand-drawn animation, paperless hand-drawn animation, and this is another style of animation which is called motion keyframe animation, which is a computer generated animation. In here you set the main keyframes and computer does the in-betweening for you. In this demonstration, the main two thing I am going to cover up for you is going to be the basic character setup, or the rigging setup, and the easing of motion, which is very important to understand. So let's start. And now what I have done here is, last time we have created bitmap layers. So in this example I have drawn the character in a vector layer. Okay, and so what I have done is I have created separate layers for every body part. As you can see, this is the head, this is the body, this is the hand which is behind the character, and these are the legs. I have broken them in very simple parts, or the major parts. Depending on the requirement, you can break down all the parts as you like. Another thing here is to mention is for the foot, basically all these pieces are simple vector layers. For the foot, what I have done is I have added another thing which is called which is called a bone deformer. Now what a bone deformer, I am not going to discuss how it works, how to create a bone deformer, but I am just going to show you the nature, how it works. So this is going to be create a morphing shape, or you can say you can move a layer, whether it is a bitmap or a vector layer, like this, in an organic way. The reason why I have done is I know that I have to bend the foot this way when it steps the ground. That's it. So now we are gonna start discussing about the very important thing in this kind of animation, which is the character rigging. Before you do the animation, you need to rig all these characters. Without doing the rigging, you can still animate any character, but the reason rigging is important is to get all those pieces, little pieces, in a systematic way. Here, if I expand this layer view, this timeline view, what you can see is these are all the layers. Like you can see the arms. This is the arm, and the arm one up. You can add your own naming convention. The way it will be easy for you to memorize. What I have done is the front arm. For the front arm, I have labeled it arm 1, and for the arm which is behind the body, I have named it as arm 2 and leg 2. This is the layer of upper arm. This the medium, the mid arm, the hand. Now what we have to do is we have to create a relationship between all these separate layers. So when we move this arm, this upper arm, the lower arm and the hand layer also moves with it. One more and the important thing here is understanding the pivot point. If you have worked on Photoshop or Illustrator or any photo editing program, you will be familiar with the concept of pivot point, and I'm giving you a simple example like this. So if I create a rectangle shape here, so now when I transform the values of the rotation and anything scaling or movement, anything, it transforms around this little pivot point. So if I move the pivot point in another place, now if I rotate the rectangle, we will see that it's rotating based on that particular pivot point. So this is very important to to set the pivot point in a right place. And how you set the pivot points for all these layers is you go to this transformation menu, and you can click on this rotation pivot tool, and you can move the position of the pivot point anywhere you need. So the next very important thing when you rig a character is to understand the concept of the parenting system or the hierarchy system. So how it works, let me show you in another example. So in this example, what we can see is, let's say this is a man, okay, and he needs to go from point A to point B. So this is going to look like this. If you hit play, you are gonna see that he's moving from point A to point B. Now let's say there is a dog in this field, and this dog wants to move around the field in a disoriented fashion, something like this. Let's say that this is the movement of the dog, okay. So let's say that this man is the master of this dog, and the dog is connected to his master with a leash, okay. There's a leash. So now if we parent the dog layer to the man layer, what is going to happen is something like this. I hope you get it now. So they both have their own individual movements, individual transformation value in them, but one layer is driving the motion of another layer. So coming back to our walk cycle example, there is several methods, several ways to parent a layer to another layer. Now I am not going to make it too much complicated, and I am going to show you a very simple way to parent two layers. Now one way to parent a layer to another layer, let's say this is the child layer, and this one I want to be the parent layer. So what I can do is I can simply drag this mid layer and drop it on top of the arm layer. Now what is going to happen is, now if you select the top layer, the upper arm layer, now you can see that the lower layer is following the transformation of the upper layer, and same for the for the hand layer. I want it to be a child of this middle layer, and so that's why I am going to drag it and drop it on top of the mid arm layer. Now if we just move the upper arm, we can move the whole arm like this. Now this method is called the hierarchy method. So this layer is the hierarchy of this layer, this layer is the hierarchy of this layer. Now Toon Boom Harmony is a node based animation system. So if you know how this node system works, then you can also do this parenting thing by using these nodes, but I'm not going to talk about it in this in this just introductory demonstration video. So this method of parenting is very simple, and what we naturally see in my computer, if you open the my computer this path, my computer path, then you can see all those drives. Now if you open up one drive, then you can see all those folders. Then once you open one folder, you see all those subfolders, and there is subfolder under the subfolder and subfolder. So that's the concept of this parenting system. And another way to use a hierarchy layer is using a peg. The shortcut in Harmony is Ctrl P, or you can click here after selecting the layer. Now what a peg is, just peg creates a null layer or a null object. If you have used After Effects, that you have I hope you have the concept of a null layer. Or if you have used Maya, there is the same kind of thing called locator. Now what this peg layer does is, this layer is an invisible layer. I mean, invisible in the sense you don't have anything drawn in this layer. You use this layer just to transform some other things as its child layer. We have selected the peg layer. Now if you transform the peg layer, it transforms all the layer, all the sub layers underneath this layer, or the layers are connected to the peg layer. Now another thing that I like to do is I color code all the different layers. When you are working with a lot of layers, it gets messy, and it takes time to find out in which layer you are working. So to avoid the mistakes, I use color codes. For example, for this upper arm, which is front of the body, I am using this kind of purple color, like the deep color for the upper, the medium color, and then a lighter color. For the arm behind the bodies, I'm using this kind of green colors. For the legs behind, I'm using these red colors, and for the legs, those are front of us, I'm using these blue colors. So this is totally up to you. I like to organize all the layers this way. Let's say for this arm which is behind the body, we can do the same thing. We can parent the middle layer to the upper layer, and the head layer to the middle layer. We can close this, and then now here for the legs, I will parent the mid layer to the up layer. Now for the this feet layer, we have added a bone deformer here, as I have shown you earlier. So you have to select the bone deformer, not the foot layer, because this bone deformer is working as a hierarchy of the foot layer. So I am going to drag this layer and drop it here to the mid layer, and that's how one leg is done. I will do the same for the leg behind. For the head, what I'm going to do is, I know that the head doesn't move independently. The head follows the movement of our body, right? So I'm going to parent this head layer to the body layer. Another thing is, you can create a peg layer for every each single layers. This is totally up to you how you need to animate the character, and you will figure out your own way for each and every different characters. I'm just showing you a simplest way. Now our head is parented to the body. Now we need to parent these two arms with the body. Now here I'm going to add a peg layer. Okay, so I'm going to add a peg layer to the body. I want this peg layer works as the hierarchy for the body and two arms. Now I want the body layer to be in between upper and lower arm. Now let's just rename the name here. Let's call it body peg, just to be clear. Now this body peg layer is working as a hierarchy of two arms and the body and the head. Now of course we need to replace the position of the pivot, now which will be act as a center of all of these sub layers. Now we want the pivot point of the body layer should be the pivot point of the body peg layer. I mean they needs to be in the same position. So that's why now when we rotate the body layer, it should move exactly where the body layer was rotating. So that means we need to have the same pivot position for both of those layers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to double click. Oh, by the way, this is where you can color code these layers by clicking this symbol. By double clicking on this layer, we can open up the layer properties, and from there you can copy the pivot position of that body layer. Now I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it to the properties of the leg of the body peg layer. Again I'm going to double click it and I'm going to copy this X and Y value, X and Y positioning value, and just paste here, and that's how we can we can have the same positioning value for both of these layers. So what we have left with is the legs. Now I want to create another peg layer, which will be the final, the main peg layer. I'm going to call it final. And we want all the layers to be in this final layer. So as you can see, if we collapse the final layer, all the sub layers goes under the layer. Now we can move the whole character as a single layer. Now you can set the pivot position again anywhere you want. Now I'm going to position it right at the ground. So we have done with the rigging of our simple character. Now you can see we can move all these individual pieces in the way they should move. Maybe we should bring down the pivot for this layer somewhere down here, and we can move this layer also. We have to remember, if we want to move the body, to rotate the body, we should be selecting this main peg layer. So this is it. Now we are gonna start animating the character. And like the previous example, I am using the background layer as our guide layer or reference layer, and the same way it will gonna move with the keyframes, with the key positions. Okay, just like the last example. Now we can just move the position of different body parts. So I'm going to skip the portion of going to each and every keyframes and set the positions, as I've done that in earlier animation demonstration. Here, let me show you very quickly how to set a motion keyframe. As I have told you that this is not going to be basic introduction video that how to use a software, so I am skipping most of these basic things. Okay, but let me show you how to set a motion keyframe. You have to select the this what is it called, this transform tool at first. Then in frame 1 the position of the ball, let's say here, and as you can see tool move creates keyframes automatically. And let's say in frame 30 maybe you see that the circle is disappeared. That's because we need to add resolution to the to our timeline. And after selecting the layer, by pressing F5 you can extend the timeline. Let's move the position of the circle here, and when you leave it, you can see that there is another keyframe created here. Now what happened is by default it created a stop motion keyframe. We can select the first keyframe or the whole selection of keyframe, and by clicking on this icon you can set a motion keyframe. So now if we hit play, it's going to look like this. Now I am very quickly, let me show you the basic concept of easing. The circle is now moving in a linear motion, and that means it's going to the start frame to the end frame in a continuous same speed. So let's show you very quickly how to add a ease. This is what called graph editor in Maya or in most of the animation applications. In Toon Boom it calls the function window. As you can see, the value is changing from the first frame to last frame in a very linear way. So now we can add easing by dragging these Bezier handles. That it means that it starting very slowly, because the value is not changing that dramatically here, and gradually it's accelerating and going towards the last frame. So that's what easing is. Now there is some basic easing presets that you can use. So after adding this easing, our animation looks something like this. It's starting slowly and it's reaching slowly. In between those two positions it's kind of accelerating. So this is the basic of setting motion keyframe and the easing. So after finishing doing all the keyframes for all those positions, our animation looks like this. So as you can see here, so as you can see in this motion keyframe style, computer generates all the in-between keyframes for you. Although you might have to do some easing in the movement of your character. Now the character actually is moving in a very linear fashion. I mean, if you just take a look at the hand, when the hand is reaching up and it's kind of going forward, and then it's coming down, and that's because there is some work left to do. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's say if we select the main body peg layer and go to the function, we'll see that the Y value, I mean this is the Y value up and down of the position is moving in a linear path. So we can we can uncheck all the other transformation values because we don't need to see them now. So human body moves in a very organic way, so that's why we need to add some easing here, so that when it reaches our keyframe, it slowly moves to another keyframe. You can add a preset, maybe not that much. So now if we add the same smoothing for all the keyframes, now the up and down movement of the body is much more smoother. So this is this is why adding easing to your animation is very important for every other body parts also. If we take a look at the rotation of the arm, you can add easing. That's how we make a smooth motion of any object. For the legs, if you see the transformation values of the legs, the rotation values of the legs, which is called angles here. Just let me quickly just change the color to make it more visible. So if you take a look at all the transformation of the legs, they are all linear, but you don't want to mess up with this kind of critical animation movements, because in betweens also they need to be in the right place at the right time. So what I'm trying to say is, making a smooth curving animation every time is not good, because you need to use the easing depending on your needs. Using too much unnecessary easing is not going to give you a good result. Like this leg example, by adding easing or smoothing the curves, you can mess up with the positioning of the leg, because to make a perfect walk cycle you need to have the leg in exact right position in each and every frame. So that's one thing to keep in mind when you are using anything, that whether it is necessary or not. So that's it. One more thing is the inertia, the follow through. What you can see for this hand layer, let's say this hand layer, you can see that for these hand layers you can see that I have shifted forward the whole keyframes of that particular layer by one frame. And the reason, because for both the hands, the reason because why I've done is, as I've said earlier, the wrist, the end of our hands move kind of behind the movement of the upper arm, and as you can see, the bend is happening after the hand is coming down. You can see how it is happening there. It's a subtle change because I have just moved it for one frame, but this kind of things are very necessary for organic animation. And the same for the head layer. I have also moved the head layer one frame, and the reason because the body moves fast, and then the follow through motion goes to the head. So after finishing adding all the easing where it needed, as you can see that the curved lines now, the curved lines of the motion path here, I have added the easing only where it's needed. So after adding all this easing, our final animation looks like this.